Yeah, there's. So, yeah, my name is Lisa Murphy and I'm from New Zealand, and I spent 4 years actually at Canaan here, or 3 years at Canaan in Australia, and then I spent a year in Germany with the sisters. And then I went to New Zealand and I became a prison officer. So they trained me well for the job. But actually, what I wanted to share with you is my own journey with forgiveness. And it actually started in community life with the sisters, and there I was a helper with another girl from New Zealand. So you'd think we'd get on really, really well, but we didn't, and we had completely different personalities. And anyway, eventually something happened, and I felt really hurt by this person, and so eventually this resentment and bitterness really seeped in. And I actually couldn't get past it. And I believe that actually until this person apologised, that no forgiveness was going to happen. And yeah, I tried in myself, and I tried with God. But anyway, nothing seemed to really shift. And then I just put it to the back of my mind. I felt eventually, I don't know, this resentment and bitterness got so bad that I felt actually I could never walk with this person. And when I was in Germany, God took me to I don't know if many of you have been out to Canaan, but they have these different stations of Jesus suffering. And God he really called me to the Gethsemane monument. And he showed me his own suffering, and the fact too that, he had to really give up his own righteousness, to take on our unrighteousness. And that was the call that he was really giving me, that I felt that that I had a right to be righteous in this situation, but he was asking me to put it down. And no matter, it wasn't about who was right, who was wrong, but something in my heart, it just couldn't shift. And this was honestly, the process took about 22 years. So, and it wasn't till much, much later. So, honestly, about 22 years had gone by. I still had this absolute bitterness and resentment to this person. It kept me away from people that I cared about and places that I loved, and I felt that God called me to. But it wouldn't shift in my heart. And then one day I was in the prison, and I just had this moment where God really spoke to me, and he said, okay, there's two choices. You've got two choices. The first one, you can stand there and you can demand the apology from the person. And if that person gives you that apology, what validity is there in that? Because you're just making them apologise, but it's actually not necessarily because they've got the right to offer that apology, because they feel bullied into it. And then, or you can have a look at the reactions it's caused in you, and with him, with Christ, work through those issues. And so I did. I ended up taking the second option and really worked it through. And when I made that conscious decision, and as God had walked me step by step through that process of forgiveness, something really lifted and shifted. But then he came with something else, and he said to me, it isn't just enough to forgive the person. I actually want you to build a relationship of trust with that person. And I thought, oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. But, it did happen. He was able to help me build that relationship of trust. But he showed me it also came down to making conscious decisions that, even though I didn't want to trust that person, even though I didn't think I had the ability to trust that person, he really, every time those thoughts came, I really felt that, God say to me, you have to make a conscious decision. So instead of saying to yourself, I I don't want to trust that person, I make a conscious decision to trust this person today. And now the relationship is really good between the both of us. So, that it's amazing what God can do when we can put ourselves aside, when we can put our own righteousness aside, when we can not worry about who's wrong or who's right in that situation, but when we can really, when we really allow God to work in our own heart. And it was funny because I got through this process and I was in the prison and I heard two prisoners fighting. So they'd come out of one of the rehabilitation programs I was in charge of, and I just happened to hear this prisoner say, well, that's it. He's offended me and I'm not coming back to the program anymore. And something took me straight back into my own journey of forgiveness. And I said to the prisoner, just hang on a minute. Okay, you've been offended. So I'm going to say the two things that were said to me. You've got two choices. And so I went through those two choices with the prisoner, and he really caught it. He really caught that if he walked away, actually he wasn't going to be impacting the other person that had offended him in any way. It was himself. And that was the same thing, that God makes us, he made me stand there and he made me look, where did my bitterness, where did my resentment get me? And how did it impact the other person? Because the other person could walk on. It was myself. It was only myself that was stuck. But if God hadn't taken me through that process, there was no way that I would have been able to reach the heart of that prisoner and in that situation. And, it's not always about, in my case, it's not always about preaching Christ, but it's also about role modelling. And when God takes me through that such a practical road of forgiveness, and then gives me the ability then to reach out and help the prisoners through it. And so, I've experienced community life in a Christian environment, but definitely also that foundation is just so applicable within the prison environment as well. And so that's just a short testimony really that I wanted to share with you.
Thank you, Lisa.